So it turns out that after all that hype and hullabaloo, Mortal Kombat X for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 has officially been canceled. So I'm sure none of us find this very surprising. We all know that Mortal Kombat X released on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One back in April, now 4 months ago or so, and to really positive reviews. You've heard me talk about it a little bit. I have the game. I think the game is fantastic. And of course, at that time, there was still a plan for a PlayStation 3 and an Xbox 360 version, basically a last-gen, 7th-gen version of Mortal Kombat X to be coming out, because the previous two Mortal Kombats did also come out on the 7th gen, well before the PS4 and Xbox One and Wii U were even systems. So they were planning on making a last-gen version of Mortal Kombat X, which I thought was kind of unfortunate, because I've said for a while that it's time to just let the 7th generation go. As awesome as it was, and as great as those machines still are, the best way to make the current generation the best it can be is for all of the developers in the industry and for gamers to just like actually dedicate to it. And it's like we've been holding on to that 7th generation for a really long time now. So I was saying, okay, like, you're going to make this game for the last gen. I understand why there's a huge install base, and, obviously you could probably make a very competent version of that game on those systems, especially when you look at what Mortal Kombat 9 was and how Mortal Kombat 10 /X even is. I mean, they're very similar games in look and feel. So, I wasn't really thrilled about the idea, but I understood why it was happening. But once it was announced that those versions were delayed, once we were coming up to the launch of the 8th gen version of that game, there was a lot of signs pointing towards, would these actually get canceled, and why would we even still bother making these games if you're going to release the current gen versions and then delay the last gen versions? And we know that more and more people are owning the current gen systems every day. It just didn't really make sense, but they were still maintaining that they were pushing forward with making a 360 and a PS3 version of that game. And, just in the last couple of days, they confirmed, regrettably, we tried very hard. I have the quote, but I don't want to read the whole quote. Regrettably, we tried very hard to make sure that this game could live up to the standards of what a Mortal Kombat game could be on the 360 and PS3, and we just couldn't really do it. So we decided to cancel it, blah, 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 blah. And, it's a typical kind of PR spin and quote. It makes a lot of sense. But in my mind, I just have a feeling that, all things considered, I don't really think that they were ever planning on releasing this game for the last generation. I mean, I don't understand why they would spend so much time and resources to work on these games and get so far and then tell us that they just were canceled because, we couldn't do it. And there's a couple of reasons why I feel that's the case. Mostly because I feel like they could do it. Again, I love Mortal Kombat X. I love it a lot. But if you look at what, like I said, what that game looks and plays like, and even what its online infrastructure is like compared to what Mortal Kombat 9 was on the last gen, they're almost the same games. I mean, the visual difference isn't that striking. I mean, Mortal Kombat 9 looked freaking fantastic on the 360 and PS3. And Mortal Kombat 10, while, yeah, it looks a little bit better because it is on the newer systems, it's not that much better looking. I mean, visually, I just can't imagine there's that big of a difference that it would be so hard to get that game to release on the last generation. I mean, in a day and age where there's only a couple of titles still keeping the 7th generation afloat, we had an Assassin's Creed game specific for 7th generation last year. We know Call of Duty and Madden is still releasing on both generations. There's no reason to think that if they really wanted to, with not that much effort, I would have to think they could still easily make this game work on the last generation systems. And so, to me, if they were spending all this time, so they say, to still work and make this game for the PS3 and 360, then they should have easily been able to do it by now. And the fact that they're saying, we worked so hard, but we just couldn't do it, so we're going to cancel it, to me means I don't think they ever really had a plan to release it on the 7th generation. Maybe at first they did, but I'm willing to bet that not too long into development, they would have had to have already known that they weren't going to be able to make this game for the last generation. I mean, why would it take them so long after the completion of the current generation to learn, we only just now hit the wall that said we can't release it on the last generation? It's BS. I mean, not like it makes me mad, because you've heard me say I don't even think that they should have been doing it in the first place. But I know that there's going to be a huge conglomerate of gamers that were probably expecting and waiting for this game to release. And those people are screwed now just because they couldn't have really been honest in the first place. It's just very weird to me, and I think that they were just afraid to say we don't want to make it for the last generation. They didn't want to make people mad and alienate gamers and just make them feel like they weren't being respected for those people who had a PS3 and 360 and didn't want to buy a new system just to play the new Mortal Kombat, I feel like things would have just been better off if Neversoft just came out in the beginning and said, hey, this is a PS4 and Xbox One game, the end, or at least like I said, at first they probably did have a plan for a 7th generation version, but I can't imagine it took too long before they realized they weren't going to do it. And at that time, they should have just said it, which would have been well before even the current generation's version would have come out. It's like, just be honest, man. Give us transparency. We don't need this kind of BS, you know? And granted, this is all going off of my own personal theory and what I think is happening. I don't know that any of this is true, but it's just, I don't know. I feel pretty good that my theory is correct, and they probably knew for a long time they weren't going to make this game for the last generation. I don't understand why it would have taken them 4 months after releasing this old version to learn that they couldn't have made it for the new version. It just seems like wrong to me. So I don't know. I feel like this is unfortunate for people who wanted that game and unfortunate for Mortal Kombat as a whole, but I think it's good for the current generation. We need to start letting the 7th generation go. And to be fair, we actually have been letting the 7th generation go. And this was one of the last few games still kind of holding on to that. Like I said, Assassin's Creed seems to be letting the last generation go, and that's awesome. Even though I don't like Assassin's Creed, I think it's very important to do so. Once Madden and Call of Duty do it, I think we're done. You know, Dark Souls 2 was one of the last games made specifically for the last generation, and there might have been another one recently that I'm not thinking of, but I mean, we're kind of done with that, and it's time to move on, and this is, even though it's an unfortunate sign for people waiting for those versions of this game, it's a good sign for the industry that we can start taking these big AAA multi-platform games and not make last-gen versions of it. I think that's a huge thing. Although I think, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, there might be Halo 5 might be getting an Xbox 360 version. I think Microsoft is planning on that. Could be wrong. Y'all let me know if I'm wrong on that one. Or maybe even Gears of War, but I doubt it with Gears of War. Regardless, we know for sure most other studios are letting the 7th generation go. I don't think there was ever a plan to make a Mortal Kombat X for the 7th generation. That's just my personal theory, and it just took them a long time to finally get the balls to be able to say, yeah, that game isn't going to happen. So sorry. Good luck next time, kind of thing. So that's my thought and theory. Just wanted to share my quick thoughts. You know, not a huge piece of news, but I thought it was interesting. So share what you guys think below. Are you excited that the 8th generation is moving forward? Are you disappointed that the 7th generation of this game isn't being released? Do you think that they really tried until just now to make this game, or do you kind of fall in line with my theory that maybe they, for a very long time, knew they weren't going to make a 7th generation version and just took way too long to tell us exactly what's going on there? So that's it. Thanks for tuning in. This is Rob of Rule 2 Review, and I'll catch you guys next time on another video.